Okay, today's talk is Miracles of the Quran, and we will be looking at 5 different types of miracles. We will be looking at the scientific miracles of the Quran, the historical miracles of the Quran, the future predictions in the Quran, mathematical miracles in the Quran, and the perfection of the Quran from the literary aspect. The Quran is actually a book of signs and are there for us to recognize. And did you know that in Iman and Mufassir, which are the 7 important things essential for any Muslim to believe in, which is our declaration of Islamic faith, one of those things is the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the very first belief, which is also the Shahada as well, that we have to believe in, is the belief in the one true God, Allah. And that is the Shahada that we follow. And Muslims believe that Allah has sent His messengers and strengthened them with certain miracles to learn about His revelation. So Muslims believe that Allah sent His messengers and He strengthened them with gifts that were prevalent to the people of that time in order to demonstrate Allah's existence. This is what happened. So each prophet brought a gift to show that there is a Allah, believe in me, everybody. Okay? So first of all, we will start off with Moses. Moses was strengthened with lots of things. We will talk about all of these in a minute. And then the next religion, Christianity. Jesus was also strengthened with things which he was strengthened by Allah to show miracles. And then that proved to people that there is a Allah, we need to believe in this prophet. So here we go. Let's look at, within Judaism, we've got Abraham here. So Allah Himself, first of all, did certain miracles. There were such great miracles, and they were performed directly, witnessed by prophets. And what that did was that made the prophets believe in Allah straight away. So the prophets believed in Allah by people showing, by Allah showing them particular important miracles. So here is one example where Allah spoke to Ibrahim alayhi salam and asked him to sacrifice his son, and just as he was prepared to do it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then made a sheep or a lamb come instead of his son being sacrificed. So that's an example of something coming straight directly to the prophet. Another one within Judaism is when Musa alayhi salam spoke directly to Allah through the burning bush. So certain miracles were something which seems to break a law of science, to which the only explanation is that there is a God there. So that is another a very big miracle where it breaks the law of science, and you know that miracle can only be actually from Allah. So a major spiritual religious experience, which something God reveals Himself through miracles which go against the laws of nature, and these experiences are extraordinary and usually experienced by people who are very highly religious, like prophets. This has to have a very massive impact to prophets to convince them, and this is what then makes them really strong then to relay the message about God. A lot of people ask me how I became religious, and I actually had a very big religious experience when I went to do pilgrimage. And that is what actually affected me and gives me the willpower to go ahead and do what I do. A lot of people ask me, where do you get your energy from? You're supernatural, you're doing so many things, and you know, your time is never lost. You still have time for your family and cooking and your home life. Where do you get all that inspiration from? So many sisters ask me. The reason is that I had a very big religious experience when I went to do Hajj, pilgrimage. And in a way, I strongly believe that that does happen to lots of people, because that's what Allah intends you to do. So this is what I'm trying to get at with prophets, for example. They come across huge major experiences, and because of that, that is what then will make them do the mission of what Allah wants. So here is another one. Some of the prophets then, not only do they exhibit miracles themselves, they show the people miracles. And through that, then the people believe that, yes, this is a prophet and we must believe in them. So here is a brilliant example of a miracle where through Allah's permission, Musa alayhi salam, he split that sea completely in half. And that is a miracle. Again, that goes against the law of nature. And it was there so people can start believing in Moses and believing in his message. And then, here is another one. We go on to the next religion. And we have got some of the miracles which Jesus did. So as the Quran mentions miracles he performed with Allah's permission. Indeed, I have come to you with a sign from your Lord, in that I designed for you from clay that which is like the form of a bird. Then I breathe into it, and it becomes a bird by permission of Allah. And that is in Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 49. So from a clay bird, he then made a live bird with the permission of Allah. Any other miracles which Jesus showed to people to say, please believe in me, I am a prophet and I'm bringing you God's word. What other miracles are written in the Quran? There are actually 4 more miracles mentioned in the Quran. Anybody?
Bringing somebody dead to bring them back to life.
Good, well done. That is one of them. Any more? Did you say one of them?
Yes, I said that one.
Yes.
Leper was cured.
Good, the lepers were cured. Anything else?
Tony,
Yes, Nick?
he spoke as a baby in the cradle.
Yes, that was at a very early age to convince people that yes, that is a prophet. And Mary, for example, is not just a lay woman like everybody was accusing of being a prostitute and all sorts. So it was to prove that that is a prophet that has been born to her. That's a very clever one. There is one more which a lot of people don't get.
Blind?
Blind, yes, there's one more I'm getting at.
Store cupboard.
Yes, good. I like that answer. You said store cupboard, which is quite funny. Jesus actually knew what you were storing in your houses. So if he knew how many sacks of rice, Ganya, you got in your house, that you're keeping away from everyone else and you're not feeding the poor, he was able to tell you, you've got 2 sacks of rice in your cupboard. Okay, so here they are. So in the Quran it says, and I cured the blind and the leper, and I gave life to the dead by permission of Allah, and I inform you of what you eat and what you store in your houses. Well done for to Dr. Naeem there, if you haven't getting that one, which nobody gets. Indeed, in that is a sign for you if you are believers. And that is actually, like I said, a sign for everybody to believe. So that is Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 49. And then when the next religion came, which was Islam, there was certain miracles. A lot of people said to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're not like the previous prophets, you're not a prophet because you don't show us miracles like Musa alayhi salam did or Isa alayhi salam did, so you're not really a prophet. So there was one major miracle which Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did to prove to the people that there is a Allah. You can tell me what that miracle was. He split the moon, good. Okay, so narrated Hazrat Anas radiallahu anhu, the people of Makkah requested Allah's Apostle sallallahu alaihi wasallam to show them a miracle, and he showed them the splitting of the moon. That is in Bukhari. And it also tells you in the Quran, in Surah Qamar, named after the moon, the hour has come near and the moon has split. So there you go. That is the major miracle which he was shown. But the problem with miracles is they are only there for the people who witness it at that time. And this is what has happened with lots of previous religions. In fact, I actually know a rabbi who said, well, I don't take it literally, for example, that Moses split the sea in half, because we don't know it happened. It didn't happen in front of me, so I don't believe that it may not have happened. So people do doubt in the past when miracles happen. So narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said every prophet was given miracles because of which people believed, but Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given a completely different kind of miracle. It was a divine inspiration which Allah has revealed to me. So I hope my followers will outnumber the followers of other prophets on the day of resurrection. That is in Bukhari. What is that miracle which was given to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which we have today and is a living miracle, and this is why people are still strong in their faith and people are becoming Muslim.
It's the Quran, isn't it?
It's the Quran. Well done. Good. I like the audience today. It's really good, active audience. Okay, so it is the Quran. Remember, each prophet came at a time when something was rife. So in Musa alayhi salam's time, sorcery, magic was rife. And that's what he used to prove to the people there is a Allah. In Jesus' time, herbal medicine was around. That was what he used, healing and herbal medicine, to prove to the people that believe in Allah. And did you know that at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, beautiful poetry was around. There was poetry and rhythm, and the greatest poets were there around the Makkah, having huge competitions. So this time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a miracle to do with beautiful poetry. And the Quran was revealed in beautiful poetry, unrivaled. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenged everyone to produce a single chapter that can surpass it in beauty and eloquence. So, in fact, did you know that one of the ayahs of the Quran was actually written and put near the Kaaba, and the highest poet of the land at that time said, I cannot make any poetry like that poetry that is up near the Kaaba, and he became Muslim straight away. So very, very interesting. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did hundreds of miracles that thousands of people during his time testified to, but today the living miracle we have is actually the Quran. Just the fact that it has remained unchanged for 1400 years and revealed to the last prophet is a miracle. It's the only book in the world that has not been changed letter by letter for 14 centuries. The Quran, we talked a little bit about this last time, is the last revealed word of Allah, and it is Allah actually talking to us. There are clear signs that the Quran is the word of Allah. In fact, if anybody's picked up the Quran and read it, it actually looks so, you can just tell that that's Allah speaking to you, and He knows what's in your heart. Sometimes you have a problem and you're reading the Quran, and it's, the words that come out, it's like Allah knows all your problems, and He's listening to you. Very, very interesting. So now we are going to look at the miracles in the Quran which make people believe in Allah. There are brilliant miracles in the Quran. Some of those things are predictions which are actually happening now in the science at the moment. And it's absolutely amazing how all those things are coming true now. And this is why Islam is actually the fastest growing religion in the world. The reason is that people are looking at all of these miracles and they are becoming Muslims. So, the Quran revealed 14 centuries ago mentioned scientific facts only recently discovered or proven by scientists and historians. It is beyond reason that anyone 1400 years ago would have known these facts, discovered or proven only recently with advanced equipment and sophisticated scientific methods. This is the main reason why people are even now, even though they have not seen Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, dealing with any miracles and things or preaching us, people now are still believing in him because they're thinking all the things in the Quran, there's no way he could have written those. They must be directly from Allah. So let us now start with the scientific miracles in the Quran. And what we're going to do is, the way we're going to do is we're going to start off in space, up in the air, and we're going to do it in order from space. We are going to come down all the way through and then onto the earth, and then we will deal with all the miracles on the earth. Okay? So, first of all, did you know that the Big Bang theory, which is in all the science books, is actually mentioned in the Quran, and in those days no astronauts could have been up there to actually see any of this. So the creation of the universe, the Big Bang, again this fact is corollary to the Big Bang and was not known to the Arabs during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. What then could have been the source of this knowledge? So with power did we construct the heaven? Verily we are able to extend the vastness of space thereof. And that is in Ad-Dariyah, chapter 47 of the Quran. Okay, so when the Big Bang happened, there was something, an element which came down to earth. Does anybody know what that is? There is a surah of the chapter named after this, and it's very recently they have found that this compound does not exist on earth. It must have come from heaven. Does anybody know what that is?
Surah Hadid and this iron.
Oh, well done.
Or
That's
meteor,
very
or
good.
meteor.
There's my Big Bang. Okay. I'm very impressed with that answer, by the way. Well done. And we sent down iron with its great inherent strength and its many benefits for mankind. And that is Surah Al-Hadid, the iron. Did you know that it was actually Dawood alayhi salam who could mold iron with his hands and make it into shapes and things? That's actually mentioned in the hadiths. So notice the word "we sent down." In the Quran it says "we sent down." And nobody knew what that meant, and it was recently they have found that the composition of iron, there is nothing on this world that could have made that iron. It must have come from up in heaven. And people have found iron in meteorites and things. So it came down from outer space. Scientists have only recently proven and found that billions of years ago the Earth was struck by meteorites when the Big Bang happened, and these were carrying iron from distant stars which exploded. People also, did you know, believe the sun orbited the Earth, the sky was held up by pillars at the corners, and the Earth was flat. All of these things were believed in. And it was actually when the Quran came down that everything was revealed, that none of these things were true. So here it is. It is He who created night and day, the sun and the moon, each floating in its orbit. That is in Surah Al-Anbiya, the Prophets, chapter 21, verse 33. So here it is, the solar system. It's also mentioned that the Earth and other planets take their own course, and orbital patterns of the cosmos were also described. It was actually in 1512 Nicholas Copernicus put forward his theory that the sun is stationary at the center of the solar system and the planets revolve around it. The belief the sun is stationary was widespread until 20th century, when found it's not stationary and it is moving in an orbit around the center of a Milky Way galaxy. This was already mentioned 1400 years ago in the Quran. And did you know that was much, much later that navigation systems and satellites actually showed the course of Earth and other planets? Another thing mentioned in the Quran, and I actually remember this when it came out in the news, it said that the Quran mentions that Allah is steadily expanding the universe. There was not even a telescope in those days to tell us that that's true. Did you know this was headline news in 1999? I remember this clearly. I was quite young and I remember it being out on the news about that the world is expanding. Astronomers have just recently discovered that all the stars and galaxies are constantly moving away from each other. Thus, the universe really is expanding. And in 1999, there was a book called A Brief History of Time, which was written by Stephen Hawking, and it is him who actually mentioned about this in his book. And here is the verse from the Quran, and it is we who have constructed the heaven with might, and verily it is we who are steadily expanding it. That is Surah Al-Dariyah 51, verse 47. Okay, so many things again. We're still in space, everybody, and we have decreed set phases for the moon until it ends up looking like an old date branch. Now, in the days when Islam came, again, nobody had telescopes to see what's going on with the moon. And that is actually already mentioned in Quran, chapter 36, verse 39, Surah Yasin. So the sun and the moon move by precise calculation. That is in Surah Ar-Rahman, chapter 55, verse 5. So if you look at all the Islamic calendar and everything, that's all completely based on the moon, with it expanding and then winding into small, thin date branch. It's quite amazing, really. And did you know that people from the Western world have analysed the moon, and in its thinnest stage, did you know that have actually written down in journals that it looks like a date branch? But they don't know that that's written in the Quran. So it's absolutely amazing. Here's my favourite picture. And here it is. It talks to you about it is not permitted for the sun to catch up with the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. Each just swims along in its own orbit according to law. That is in Surah Yasin, chapter 36, verse 40. And this, again, it was only when satellite systems were invented in the late 1960s, and the satellites went up into all the heavens, and they looked and they found all these forces, interesting forces that keep each planet not crashing into the other planet. It's absolutely amazing when you think about it. And when we look at, in the future, when we do the end of the world, we will look at how those forces crumble and then everything completely ends. So very, very interesting. So not only are all the patterns of the cosmos mentioned, it talks to you about all these orbits, all in their own orbits turning around, and then night and day as well. Oh listener, did you not see that Allah brings the night in part of the day and brings the day in a part of the night, and that He has subjected the sun and the moon, each one runs for its own fixed term, and that Allah is well aware of your deeds. That is in Surah Luqman, chapter 31, verse 29. So this is another very interesting concept. Before the Quran came down, nobody even knew how you get night and day. All you could see was what you could see from the earth and nothing else. So in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day, there are signs for people with intelligence. Again, that is in chapter 3, verse 190, and it talks to you about the day and the night. So much science in there. Okay, He created the heavens and earth in truth. He wraps the night over the day and wraps the day over the night, and has subjected the sun and the moon, each running its course for a specified term. Unquestionably, He is the exalted in might, the perpetual forgiver, and that is in Quran Az-Zumar, the Truths, chapter 39, verse 5. So in the Quran, did you know that it was mentioned that the world was round, whereas it was previously thought that the world was flat? And did you know that the word yugover, which I have actually highlighted in blue there, is a very, very specific word in Arabic? Does anybody know what that word means? Does anybody know what that word means? Yugover, it's so specific. Not only does it mean round, it means ball or sphere and elliptical. And did you know it's only very, very recently that satellites have proven that the world is actually elliptical. It's not even round. And it's a sphere. Nobody knew that before. If you look at all the books before the Quran came down, all the scientists wrote that the world was flat. And did you know that when this came out, that is when all the inventions of all the maps happened? And it was actually Al-Idrisi. Some of you have seen the Golden Age of Islam talk I gave at the last party here. It talks about all the geographers who came forward, Islamic geographers, who then made maps of the world round ones, just by looking at this ayah and studying this ayah. And it is then that all those maps were then used by all of the modern day explorers, like for example Christopher Columbus and Francis Drake and all of them. They are then the ones who actually used Al-Idrisi's map and went and sailed around the world. So later navigation systems proved that the world was round, and satellites showed the course of planets. Really, really nicely, much, much later. Late 60s actually was when Neil Armstrong got to the moon, and that's when all this got done, yet the Quran was written 1400 years ago. While we're still up in the sky, it also told us something very interesting. In the Quran, it told us that the sun is basically shining on the moon, and that is what's making it luminous. Did you know before that eye of the Quran came down, everybody knew on earth, they thought that the moon was also a lamp shining. So blessed is he who's placed in the sky great stars and placed therein a burning lamp and luminous moon. The moon was mentioned to be lit up by reflection from the sun's light, and everyone previous to that thought the moon was a light as well. Don't you find that amazing? That is in Al-Furqan, the Criterion, chapter 25, verse 61. While we're still up there, we're still up in the sky, we're about to come down. Did you know that it also talks to you about calendars as well? I just find that absolutely amazing. Not just the solar calendar, but the lunar calendar as well. So it is he who made the sun to be a shining glory and the moon to be a reflected light of beauty, and measured out stages for her, that you might know the number of years and the count of time. No wise did Allah create this, but in truth and righteousness. Thus does he explains his signs in detail for those who understand. So that is just amazing. That's in chapter 10, which is Surah Yunus, verse 5. Right, I think we've done enough in space. I could go on forever. Did you know I could do a whole day's lecture just in space? But we've got to get back down to Earth. So after space, we are coming down in the aeroplane. What do you hit next as you come down? Pardon?
The clouds?
The clouds, that is a good answer actually. We're looking at the ozone layer. Yes? So, here we go. We made the sky a protective ceiling, and yet they are turning away from our signs. That is in Surah Anbiya, the Prophets, chapter 21, verse 32. So did you know, again, it is only in my own time as an adult, all of a sudden it's out there about the ozone layer. Some of us older ones never heard of even what the ozone layer was when we were young. It didn't exist. It's only in recent times the ozone layer is now being talked about. So the protective properties of the sky were only found out in the 20th century, where it found that the sky protects from lethal sun rays, which will kill all creation. There is a blanket around the earth to protect from freezing cold space. If there's no sky, did you know the earth would completely freeze? The sky protects by warming earth through retention of heat. What am I talking about there? The greenhouse effect. Yes? All of those things are all new things. The greenhouse effect, the ozone layer, and all this business. Yet the Quran mentioned that 1400 years ago. Right, our aeroplane has gone through the ozone layer. What is the first thing you will see from up there? Please put your hand up. There's too many people in the audience. Let's have Seema. No, we've gone through the clouds, we've gone through the ozone layer. What's the first thing you see when you get on the earth? Water. Who said water? Water. Well done. So now we are going to focus on the water. There is my two C's. Can you see what is going on with my two C's there? It is he who has released simultaneously the two C's, one fresh and sweet and one salty and bitter. And he placed between them a barrier and prohibiting partition. That is in the Criterion, Al-Furqan again, chapter 25, verse 53. This is absolutely amazing. Do you know that? So, we are looking at the sea here and the rivers. When the river is sweet and we are able to drink that, goes into the sea and the sea is salty and we can't drink that, there is an invisible barrier which separates the two. So here is the horrible salty sea, and here is the beautiful river going into the sea. And there is a distinct barrier. This is actually a real life photograph from the air of where they both meet. And that you're amazed, aren't you? And your face is all brilliantly lit up. It's amazing, really, for people who understand, like I was saying earlier, for people who understand, it's amazing. And then there is another thing. Does anybody know what else the two seas meet and they don't mix? The salt and sweet don't mix, and there is another type of thing. think of England and the cold Atlantic Ocean, and think of, as we go towards Turkey on holiday, warm and cold water. Well done. If you look at the Mediterranean towards Turkey meets the Atlantic, and yet, did you know, I've tried it, you put your left foot in the Atlantic Ocean and it's freezing cold, you put your right foot in the Mediterranean and it's warm. They don't mix. It's absolutely amazing. So, he released the two seas meeting side by side. Between them is a barrier. So this is now between the two seas, the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. And so neither of them transgresses. So which of the favors of your Lord would you deny? If anybody of you have read Surah Al-Rahman, it's an amazing surah. Every second Allah says, which of the favors of your Lord would you deny? He's trying to prove to you there is a Allah. Listen to me. Look at this miracle and look at this miracle. There is a Allah. So did you know that they are different surface tensions and the Mediterranean and Atlantic meet, but did you know that their temperature, salinity and density does not change? There is an invisible barrier which separates them. And modern day scientists have actually seen and looked under that microscope at the barrier. Okay, something else about the water. We're still looking at the water. Does anybody know what other miracle there is in the Quran about the water? I'll tell you. The unbeliever's state is like the darkness in a deep sea. It is covered by waves, above which are waves, above which are clouds. Darkness is one above another. If a man stretches out his hand, he cannot see it. That is a strange surah, don't you think? Strange ayah when you read it. That is Surah An-Nur, light, and it's chapter 24, verse 14. And it says, what it's trying to say is that when you go deep under the oceans, did you know that if you go below a depth of 1,000 meters, there is no light at all? The darkness in deep seas and oceans is found 200 meters downwards. Did you know that human beings are not able to dive more than 40 meters without the aid of submarines or special equipment? And did you know that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, could not swim? Was there any water in Arabia? Not a single ounce of water in the deserts. He couldn't swim. So did you know that how would he have known that? So when I was talking to you earlier on about the Quran, he would not have known that. So that definitely must be Allah who has written that, who does know what is under the seas. And all these frogmen and diving equipment, all of that has just come out nowadays, hasn't it? Where people have got the necessary equipment to go under the sea and actually see it is dark under there. Not only that, with ocean specialists, they have looked even deeper nowadays. Darkness in deep seas and oceans is found at a depth of 1,000 meters, below where there is no light at all. Humans are not able to dive more than 40 meters without the aid of submarines or special equipment, and cannot survive unaided in the deep, dark part of the oceans. Remember, there was no specialist equipment in the Prophet's days, and he could not swim. And look at this diagram, is amazing. Did you know that ocean specialists have looked into the internal ways and interface between two layers of water of different densities? One is dense, the lower one, and the other is less dense. This is actually in a book called Oceanography by Gross, page 204. So, oceanographers have discovered there are several internal ways below the surface of the ocean. These are invisible to human eye, and they have only recently been detected by specialist equipment. Yet what did it tell you in the Quran? It told you that there is wave upon wave upon wave. And these are those internal waves, a picture. Right, we've done the water. What else do you see from the aeroplane as you come down to earth? You've done your sea. Most of it is water. Mountains. Good. I can tell you've been on holiday. Okay, so did you know that the first thing you see is mountains? And when we put seas and rivers together with mountains, we get the water cycle. Did you know that the only scripture in the world has got the whole water cycle written in there? Now, did you know in Arabia there was no water? No water in the deserts, nothing. It never rains. It doesn't rain in the desert areas. So it could only have been Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who knows about all of this kind of business. So let's have a look at the ayahs. Cease thou not, Allah sends down rain and leads it through springs in the earth. Then He causes to grow there with produce of various colours. That is in chapter 39, verse 21. So did you know Allah describes the whole water cycle in the Quran? And He sends down the rain from the sky and with it gives life to the earth after it is dead. Verily in that are signs for those who are wise. That's chapter 30, verse 24. So the whole water cycle, can you see, is there. Here are the clouds, and basically the water evaporates from the sea, goes up in the clouds, and then it rains. The whole water cycle is there. And we send down water from the sky according to measure, and we cause it to soak in the soil, and we for sure are able to drain it off with ease. There you go, the last part of the cycle. That's in Quran chapter 23, verse 18. And it tells you more. Have you not seen how Allah makes the clouds move gently, then joins them together, then makes them into a stack, and then you see the rain come out of it. That is Surah Nur, the light, chapter 24, verse 43. So the whole water cycle, can you see, is in the Quran. And did you know that, again, my other lecture at the last party was on the Golden Age of Islam. We talked about modern Muslim scientists. They were not modern, but this is after the Quran was revealed. They actually invented evaporation. And they're the ones who separated all the oils and made petrol and diesel. This is why this is rife amongst some of the Islamic countries. They use this concept. They wanted to investigate, is it really true what Allah said? So they got water, they boiled it, formed a cloud, cooled it, and then it became water. And guess what? It was all true. And this is how the major scientists ended up working in chemical laboratories and things. What else does it say about mountains, which very recently has been discovered? Any other ideas? Let's have Nicola.
It's the roots of the mountains going as far down as they can.
Good. I really like the audience today. I think you're doing brilliantly. All of you. Have we not made the earth as a bed and the mountains as pegs? What on earth does that mean then? Anybody reading that 1400 years ago would think, we don't get it, we don't understand it. That's in Surah An-Naba, verse 6 to 7. And did you know it was after the 1960s where there were very, very specialist modern earth science equipment which could see through the mountains, and it was there. Do you know what they found? They found, this is the summit of the mountain up there. Can you see it's tiny where it says the Alps? What a big mountain the Alps is, huge. Yet it's a tiny little hump, and you look under it and look at the pegs which are anchoring that mountain. So the fact that mountains have deep stake-like roots, deeper than their summits are high, wasn't known until after the development of tectonics in the 20th century from modern earth sciences. And if we look at this picture, as you can see, the peg-like roots are far, far more deeper than the summits. Can anybody give me an idea how many meters deep this peg is in comparison to the top? Any ideas? 125 kilometers. I'm going to give you the first clue. This is how deep this peg is, 125 kilometers. How much is that tiny little hump in comparison to that?
1 kilometer.
How much? 1. It's actually 9 kilometers. But that isn't a bad answer, because if you look at the probability between 9 kilometers and 125, it's very, very big difference, isn't there? Very, very big difference. Okay, so, and he has set up on the earth mountains standing firm, lest it should shake with you, and rivers and roads that you may guide yourselves. Surah An-Nahl, the B, Quran chapter 16, verse 15. So we set firm mountains in the earth so it would not shake you. Did you know it was in 1960s again that it was found that mountains act like stabilizers when there is a big earthquake? Allah has already revealed this in the Quran. So this is what keeps all the mountains stable. Did you know they would just crumble and fall? It's these stake-like pegs which keeps them intact. Right, we're on the earth now, we've landed. What is next? After the mountains, what do you see? Shall we have you? Pardon? Yeah, we're already done the ground. The mountains is ground. Okay, what do you see on the earth? Yes, animals. Animals, good. We are following well. So, and Allah has created every moving living creature from water. Of them there are some that creep on their bellies, some that walk on 2 legs, and some that walk on 4. Allah creates what He wills, for verily He has power over all things. That's Surah Nur, the Light, chapter 24, verse 45. So did you know that, again, it's only when microscopes were invented in the late 1960s they found that cytoplasm of everything has at least 80% water. I looked this up actually before I came today. 80% of all cytoplasm is water. So in Arabia, in the deserts where Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, grew up, there was no water. So how would he know that? It's because the Quran is revealed by Allah. Somebody here said insects, and that's my next bit. Scientists have discovered that ants speak, but did you know it was revealed 1400 years ago in the Quran? Who was that revealed to? Which prophet was actually, could speak the language of animals? And he is mentioned in the Quran. Yes? Yes, good. And I'm going to put a little video on. You will have to read what it says to for the whole ayahs. I won't have to go into it that way.
وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون.
Small talk, very small talk. Scientists have long studied how various creatures communicate. Dolphins in the water, chimpanzees on land, birds in flight. But insects, could they possibly have anything to say? Well, when it comes to the tiny ant, it turns out the answer may be yes. Here's Nick Watt.
Ants live in highly structured societies. They are masters of architecture and even agriculture. And now, scientists tell us, ants actually talk to each other.
Were you surprised by what you found?
We were. Yes, we were surprised.
With an iPod and an old pair of headphones, they discovered worker ants are indifferent to rock music, but stand guard when a distressed queen makes this particular sound.
They stand on the speaker with their jaws and their mandibles opened, something like saying, I'm defending my queen.
Now, no one is saying these little creatures talk like they do in the movies.
Now stay calm. We are going around the leaf.
Around the leaf? I don't think we can do that.
but they do have a kind of language.
Look at the back end of the ant. That's the abdomen moving up and down, vibrating. That's how ants make noise. That's how they, I suppose, talk to each other.
Scientists made these startling discoveries by accident while studying the large blue butterfly. They watched butterfly pupae trick ants into taking them to ant nests and nurturing them until they hatched. Why? Well, amazingly, the butterfly pupae imitate the ant queen's distinctive voice. Butterflies have learned to speak this mysterious ant language, a language humans have only just discovered. Nick Watt, ABC News, Turin.
Okay, don't you find that amazing? Only in 2009 it was actually revealed that ants speak in the news. Yet it was mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago, and a lot of people thought, how can ants speak? You know, because it does talk to you about Solomon and Islam speaking to the ants, and he grinned at them. I find that amazing. He could understand their language and he smiled at what they were saying. He smirked, and that is just amazing. Right, we've done animals. What do I have to do next now? What else is on the earth apart from animals? Good, you're doing very well today. Well done. So yes, people. So we're going to start off with babies. Something absolutely amazing is that the whole structure of the embryo, stage by stage, is mentioned in the Quran. It says, and certainly did we create man from an extract of clay, then we placed him as a sperm drop in a firm lodging. Look at all these stages. Then we made the sperm drop into a clinging clot, and we made the clot into a lump of flesh, and then we made from the lump bones, and we covered the bones with flesh. Then we developed him into another creation. Look at that. Surah Al-Mu'minun, the believers, that's chapter 23, verses 12 to 14. And here are all those stages. And did you know that ultrasound only came out in the late 1960s? That was the first time someone could actually even take an X-ray of what's going on in there. And that's when they realized, actually, you know what, this is all true. And the other thing that's mentioned is about the leech-like structure. There's very, very specific Quranic words that explain that the embryo, when it is very, very young, after 25 days, and before 25 days, is like a leech. And if you look at that picture of that leech, it is exactly like that, isn't it? Can you see in that picture? And did you know that not only does it look like a leech, scientists have recently done looked at the internal structure, and the internal anatomical structure of a leech is exactly identical to an embryo at 24 to 25 days. Isn't that amazing? And again, like I said, it was in the 1960s when ultrasound was actually first invented. Something else it says about babies is that the father determines the baby's gender. He is the one who created the two kinds, male and female, from a tiny drop of semen. That's in Quran Surah An-Najm, the star, chapter 53, verses 45 to 46. Now, how does that happen then? How does the father determine the baby's gender? If any of you have done genetics, like I did, you might know. Shall we go for Nicola?
Yeah, the woman has two X chromosomes, the man has X and Y, so the men determine the sex of the baby by whether they pass on the X or the Y. Good,
well done. Very clever people in the audience today. That's spot on, and you saved me explaining all of that. So can you see the father has an XY chromosome? It is up to him whether he denotes an X chromosome to make it a girl or a Y chromosome to make it a boy. It's actually up to him, and that's exactly what it says in the Quran. Amazing. So if any of you have got nagging mother-in-laws who are nagging you why you've got a girl, not a boy, you can blame the son, can't you?
Exactly.
Okay, we'll carry on. And then bones. It talks to you exactly about how many bones there are. X-rays did not come out till the late 1960s. Yet Aisha radiallahu anha reported that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, every one of the children of Adam has been created with 360 joints. So he who declares the glory of Allah, praises Allah, declares Allah to be one, glorifies Allah and seeks forgiveness from Allah, and removes stone or thorn or bone from people's path, and enjoins what is good and forbids from evil, to the number of those 360 joints, will talk that day, having saved himself from the fire. That was all sayings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sahih Muslim, book 5. And did you know that Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu narrated, I heard the Messenger of Allah say, a human being has 360 joints, for each of which he must give alms. And again, X-rays only recently invented, and all doctors can tell us here that it is actually 360 joints we have. What else is mentioned in the Quran that only recently people have investigated about bones? Does anybody know? There's one more thing mentioned about bones.
Yeah, you have the coccyx bone.
Oh yes, we're going to come to that in a minute. There's one other, but that's a brilliant answer. I'm very pleased with you today. You're doing really well. My top student today. There's one more about bones. I'll give you an idea. Prophet Zachariah alayhi salam. Anybody know? Okay. Did you know that in old age you get osteoporosis? Yes? So here's your bones. This is what they're like when you are young, and when you get old, they become porous. And it's actually mentioned in the Quran where Zachariah is praying to Allah for a baby, and he says, my Lord, indeed my bones have grown feeble and grey has spread on my head, and I've never been unblessed in my invocation to you. And this is a very, very interesting word, which I've put there in red, and that word, did you know, means porous in Arabic. So that word actually means, in one word, this, osteoporosis. So the Arabic word vahana, it's in verse 4 of Surah Maryam, means relaxed, weakened and insufficient, all in one. And did you know that all of that, after bone scanning recently, has taken detailed measurements using modern technology, and they have found images of the disease osteoporosis or bone loss. Did you know in scientific texts it talks to you in the language of scientists as your bones being relaxed, weakened and insufficient? And that one word in the Quran means all of those things. The other one, which our sister mentioned here, is about the fact that the coccyx bone, it tells you that all the children of Adam will decay except for the bone of the coccyx, tailbone, and that's actually called the Ajbuz Zanab. From it, he was created, and by it, he will be reconstructed. And did you know that it was only in 1931, recently, that it has been found that there are stem cells in that coccyx bone? And it was actually somebody called Hans Spearman. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1935 for discovering something which was already mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago. And he found that that bone can never be decomposed, even if you go through cremation, which is really intense heat. It's never ever decomposed. And from that bone, inside are live stem cells. In fact, nowadays, to grow new bone marrow and things like that, scientists are using the stem cells from this coccyx bone. And it's from there that we will all rise again. That's going to be by next time's lecture, when we all come and rise again on the Day of Judgment. Absolutely amazing. It's from the stem cells Allah will put us all back together again as we are now. What else is mentioned about human beings in the Quran, and it's only very recently it's been in front of our eyes discovered? Anybody know? This is your clue? The question is, there's something else about human beings in the Quran which has very recently been discovered, and it's?
Your fingerprints.
Fingerprints, good. So, fingerprints. It tells you in the Quran, does man think that we cannot assemble his bones? Nay, we are able to put together in perfect order the very tips of his fingerprints. That's in chapter 75, in verse 3 and 4. 1400 years ago, who would have known the uniqueness of each human's fingerprints? Surely it could not have been other than the Creator himself. And if you look at those fingerprints, it's only very recently, even in universities, there are fingerprints to enter libraries and things. This is very new. Our mobile phones, some of us who've got iPhones, the latest one, you need your own fingerprint. And my daughter, who's very similar to me, her fingers are exactly the same as mine. She tries to get into my mobile phone and she can't get in there. Because her fingerprint is completely different to my one. And police, did you know that the police, when I did this talk with, I was training with Essex Police, I do lots of training for them in Islam, and they found that absolutely amazing. They said, you know, this is only now being introduced about all this criminology studies, how to get criminals caught by their fingerprints. It's something new. Okay, something else about humans, very interesting indeed. I could go on about this forever because I love my science. No, indeed, if he does not stop, we are talking about something really horrible here in the Quran. Okay, it talks about him and it says, we will surely drag him by the forelock. That's this bit. A lying, sinning forelock. Now, when that was revealed, nobody knew what the hell's that about. What's this lying and sinning? In Surah Al-Alaq, the clock is written, chapter 96, verses 15 to 16. And did you know that Allah is calling a person a liar? And he's talking about the frontal part of their brain as lying and sinful. And did you know that it's only very recently in science that studies have been done, the Essentials of Anatomy and Physiology documents, that the frontal lobe is responsible for movement and seizes if a man doesn't stop. That's how specific that ayah is. The same region is responsible for the lying function of the brain. A study done in the University of Pennsylvania found that there was significant increased activity in the frontal lobe region found by medical imaging equipment in the 20th century. So scientists have found that the frontal part of the brain is actually, let's have a look in there, the frontal lobe is actually the one that is responsible for that lying and sinning part. Amazed? Yes? Did you know that a lot of, there's other journals, you will not believe, to prove that a lot of people who lie a lot, that part of their brain is quite big. Yeah, honestly, I'm not lying. There are journals to prove criminals and things like that. That part of their brain is really big. The other one is about your skin. Okay? We shall send those who reject our revelation to hellfire. When their skins have been roasted away, we shall replace them with new ones so that they may continue to feel the pain. And that is actually in Surah Nisa, the woman. Remember, mostly women are going to be in hellfire. So I wonder why let's put that in that in that particular region of the Quran, that verse. So chapter 4, verse 56. And did you know that very recently again, after microscopic studies, we have found that, you know, the pain receptors, they are just under the skin. And once your skin burns under those layers, you stop feeling pain. You don't feel any more pain. So in hell, God renews your skin so you can keep feeling the pain again and again and again. Does that make sense? Yes? This is the reason why that is written in there. So I think that that is enough scientific miracles, but now we are going to look at other miracles. So there are so many historical miracles in the Quran. I could be here forever and do a whole lecture just on historical miracles, which I might do if the demand is there, if I'm still around. So we've got Haman and ancient Egypt monuments, the troubles which afflicted Pharaoh and those around him, the word Pharaoh in the Quran, the city of Iran, the people of Saba and the Aran flood, Prophet Musa and the sea splitting in two, the Prophet Musa referred to as a magician, Hazrat Nuh al-Islam's flood, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, the people of Al-Hijr. but I'm actually going to do my favorite ones. So many verses in the Quran mention future events which later came to pass. And who is this drowning? Can anybody guess from that picture? Pharaoh. Good. Well done, Pharaoh. So today we will save you in body, that you may be to those who succeed you a sign, and indeed many among the people of our signs are heedless. That is in Surah Yusuf, chapter 10, verse 92. Now when that verse came out, nobody knew what that meant. Today we will preserve your body so you can be a sign for people who come after you. Nobody understood that. Hieroglyphics had not come out. Nobody had even discovered any of the mummies or any of the things that had happened in Egypt. Nobody knew about it. That only happened much, much later within this century. So nobody understood it. Did you know that the body was only discovered of Pharaoh in 1898? This is the dead body of Ramses II, the Egyptian Pharaoh in the era of Prophet Moses. Its age is approximately 3,000 years old, and it was found by the Red Sea, and it's now on display in the Royal Mummies Museum in Cairo. But the Quran existed 1400 years ago. This is a proclamation for the people to be warned herewith, and to let them know that he is only one God, and for those who possess intelligence to take heed. So how extraordinary this verse must have been when it first appeared. No one knew the Pharaoh's body was really intact, and it only came to light much, much later. So I've got a really interesting video for you all to watch. Did you know that the man who discovered all of this then became Muslim?
حينما رددت يا رب العباد وانتشت روحي وصار الدمع هادي نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد وانتشت روحي وصار الدمع يجري يا إلهي خذ بقلبي للرشاد في سكون الليل أدعو في سجودي والدجى حولي سواد في سوادي يا رغوفا يا لفضلك من نفادي يا شفيعا يا مجيبا يا عظيما اهدني يا خالق السبع الشداد خذ بقلبي للرشاد أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا يجري يا إلهي خذ بقلبي للرشاد للهدى والحق وفقني إلهي فعلى توفيقك اليوم اعتمادي يا إله الكون يا عوني أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد وانتشت روحي وصار الدمع يجري يا إلهي خذ بقلبي للرشاد أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد للرشاد أشرقت نفسي.
This is a French person, and he is now a Muslim, and he has written many books. This is actually one of the leaflets that he has written, the Quran and Modern Science. I've actually got them here for you to take with you afterwards. So very interesting that he then became a Muslim because of this, and then he's written many journals to do with Islam and science. I'll give those out later. There's also something else. Did you know that the word Haman was mentioned in the Quran? It says, and establish them in the land and show Pharaoh and his minister, Haman, and the soldiers through them, that which they had feared. And that is in the Quran, Al-Qasas stories, chapter 28, verse 26. Did you know that when the Rosetta Stone was actually discovered, the word Haman by name was in there? And all the non-Muslims didn't know what Haman was and who Haman was. And it was actually mentioned in the Quran that he was actually the chief advisor of Pharaoh. The ancient Egyptian language was deciphered only in 1799 with the discovery of a tablet dated to 196 BC, well before the Quran was written, called the Rosetta Stone, and Haman was mentioned in there by name. Isn't that amazing? The other prediction, which is in the Quran, is that in Surah Rum, which is chapter 30, verse 2 to 4, it says the Byzantines have been defeated in their nearest land, but they, after their defeat, will overcome within 3 to 9 years. To Allah belongs the command before and after, and that day the believers will rejoice. So it very, very clearly tells you that Byzantine Empire, which had been defeated, would soon gain victory within 3 to 9 years. Nobody believed that when the Quran came down, because the Byzantine Empire had completely become defeated and was very weak. And did you know it was exactly in that time frame that they became strong again, and it became true. What was written in the Quran completely became true. Okay, the other thing, again very recently in the news, it was said, O earth, swallow your water, O sky. This is in relation to Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, when the flood came. And it said, O sky, withhold your rain. And the water subsided, and the matter was accomplished, and the ship came to rest on the mountain of Judy. Okay, that is in Surah Hud, chapter 11, verse 44. Yet, in all the other books, it didn't say that. It actually said Ararat. Did you know in the Bible it says that Noah's ark rested on Ararat? And it was very, very recently that that ark was actually found.
An article published by The Observer states that the Noah's Ark has been found. And what's interesting here is that the Quran and the Bible give two distinct accounts of the location of the Ark. And as we noticed, the Quran was correct and the Bible was wrong. The article here states, Noah's Ark has been found on the Turkish-Iranian border 32 kilometers from Mount Ararat, according to the leader of a team of scientists that has been investigating the site for 6 years. The Turkish government is so convinced by the findings that after years of intransigence it has designated the site one of special archaeological interest and agreed to its excavation next summer. The remote site contains a buried ship-like object resting an altitude of 2,300 meters. At 170 meters long and 45 meters wide, it conforms almost exactly to the 300 cubit by 50 cubit boat that God told Noah to build. In surrounding terrain, the American and Middle Eastern scientists have identified huge stones with holes carved at one end, which they believe are drogue stones, dragged behind ships in the ancient world to stabilize them. Radar soundings indicate unusual levels of iron oxide distribution. Salih Bayraktutan, head of geology at Turkey's Ataturk University, estimates the age of the vessel at more than 100,000 years. And he quotes as saying, "It is a man-made structure, and for sure it is Noah's Ark." End quote. The site is directly below the mountain of Al-Judi, named in the Quran as the Ark's resting place. The Quranic verse, so that's the end of the article. The Quranic verse detailing about the resting place of the Noah's Ark is found in chapter Hud, verse 44. The verse says, "And it was said, O earth, swallow up your water, and O sky, withhold your rain. And the water was diminished," meaning made to subside, "and the decree of Allah was fulfilled." The destruction of the people of Nuh, or Noah, alayhi salam, and the ship rested on Mount Judi, and it was said, "Away with the people who are the dhalimun, the polytheists and the wrongdoers. So, just the point of evidence that it rested, the Quran says specifically that it rested on Mount Judi. The 49th verse of the same chapter says, "This is the news of the unseen which we reveal unto you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May the peace and blessings be upon him. Neither you nor your people knew them before this, so be patient. Surely the good end is for the muttaqun, meaning the pious." Whereas the Bible says in Genesis 8:4, "Then the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat." And this is in the New King James Version, Genesis 8, verse 4. And the pictures you are now seeing are just pictures from the website, fatwa-online.com.
Okay, so did you know that even the measurements of that ark were identical to what is written in the hadiths as well, within the Quran as well. So it's absolutely amazing. So the other miracles I already did when I already did my lecture on the history of the Quran. So we already know that it's the only book in the world that has not been changed for 1400 years, which is a miracle in itself. It cannot be changed because it tells you in the Quran that it is a book without crookedness. Who can remember the two reasons why the Quran can never be changed? What are the two reasons?
Allah will, what do you call it, look after.
Allah will look after it, but there are two specific reasons I gave in the last lecture or 2 lectures ago on how it can't be changed.
There's 10 million Hafid in the world, alhamdulillah. That's one reason. And secondly...
But that's not the answer I'm looking for. What's the main reason? Poetry. The words are poetry in there. If I tried to change even one of the words, the whole poetry would go. You cannot replace the ends of a word with any other word that means the same and rhymes. You can't do that. Okay? What was the other reason I gave in the last lecture? The Arabic language is so specific. I gave 3, for examples there. Each word means 3 or 4 words. Yeah? Like Sophia and elliptical is one of the things I mentioned here. And the bone, the loss, the porous and weakening and something else. If you change that word with any other word, it would completely change the whole of that sentence. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved the Quran. By 2 things, poetry and the Arabic language. Okay? And what you said is good as well. It's the only book in the world that has been memorized word for word. And it's so easy to memorize. I know dyslexic children who are good at nothing else, but they can memorize the whole Quran. If you think about it, there's not a single person who cannot memorize the surahs for reading Salah, for example. No matter how weak you may be within English. So this is what protects the Quran, and we know that out of all the books, if all of them were thrown in the river, the Quran is the only one that would be able to come out. And as the brother here was mentioning, it is actually in Surah Hijr, we are promised that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect the Quran, and not a single chapter has even been equaled, not even the shortest chapter, which is Al-Baqarah, has not been, nobody has been able to do that. It's also protected from jinns and mankind, and it tells you in the Quran that bring me 10 surahs forged like that onto it. Allah is challenging everybody. All the miracles I spoke to you about, including all the Arabic miracles in there, which I find are absolutely amazing. And did you know very recently there are mathematical miracles in the Quran? So it mentions male 24 times, it mentions female 24 times. It mentions zakat 32 times and the blessings, the barakah 32 times. Charity is mentioned 73 times, satisfaction is mentioned 73 times. Last time I showed you a video and all the surahs' lengths were all calculated on a map and it made the word Allah. That is amazing. So that then brings me right to the end, the beginning. The Quran is the beginning of divine revelation leading to a new era, because the laws and values are from heaven, not earth. It's the way of life as per divine guidance, not human desires. Long term, not short term, i.e. up to the day of judgment. permanent guidelines and solutions, not temporary. And it addresses all human beings, rich and poor, black and white, educated and non-educated. Addresses all aspects of life. It's for the entire world, not a region or country. And it's guidance from Allah, who knows man like no other. So this is the reason why Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Okay? So, very quickly, I was going to do questions. We're going to do this super professional style now. There's too many of you. Is there anyone who's got questions? We've got adhan in 2 minutes. No questions. Everybody's too shy. It's because of this, isn't it? Nobody wants to talk in here. Maybe we'll get rid of this next time. Okay, then it's a Dhuhr Salat time now. So the sisters can go behind here to pray, and the brothers can go upstairs. Jazakallah.